Hello, hello again. Welcome back to Matt and Cheryl's Gen Excellent Playlist. I'm Matt.
I'm Cheryl.
And we continue our tour through the popular music of 1980. And Cheryl, I guess we're realizing that we're hitting a series of subgenre shows here.
Yes.
1980 is an interesting year for, actually, I think both of us have had a fascination with this era, not just 1980, but, the end of disco pre-MTV period, 79 to 81, kind of in there. The popular music of that era hits a sweet spot for us. I think maybe we were just the right age to be getting into popular music at that time. So there's that nostalgia value, but it's just it's a really interesting time.
Yeah, and I love the way that it's kind of like all these different genres and new genres that are appearing and clashing with each other, like the old and the new and kind of the transitions and how there's crossover between all the different genres with bands that have had long careers and have disco, and then they get into new wave, and then they get into electronic, and it's really cool. I love this era. Between like 78 and 82 is just, I think, the most interesting time in music.
Yeah, I find it very interesting as well. Now, we'd already teased future shows about the ska revival, the two-tone bands. That's coming up. We also want to take a look at the urban cowboy movement, the crossover country songs that came out around the time of that movie starring John Travolta and Deborah Winger, which was a big hit movie in 1980. We were going to just do a regular episode this week, but then we got sucked into another subgenre, but it's a fun one. We're going to take a look at the music that is now affectionately referred to as yacht rock, and a couple of classics in that vein from the year 1980.
We've already had songs on our playlist that would be considered yacht rock. In fact, quite a few. I think that we do gravitate toward what is considered soft rock too. So the yacht rock thing just kind of happened by accident because you were picking a song and I was picking a song. We're like, hey, wait a minute. These are both kind of yacht rock, aren't they?
Well, I think it's important to go over the definition of yacht rock as well. Now,
Yeah.
if you're going with the broadest definition of yacht rock, which a lot of casual music fans would use, I mean, a lot of people apply it interchangeably with soft rock, and we've already had a number of soft rock hits on our playlist. We're looking more specifically here at the kind of smooth music that has an R&B, jazzy influence there, particularly in the vocals, a soulful vocal, music that has some jazz influence, some tricky changes to it, and some sophisticated harmonics to it. I mean, that's really a more specific definition of yacht rock that differentiates it from soft rock. Just includes all manner of music from the singer-songwriter, acoustic based.
Right. Plus, I really do want there to be something to do with the ocean or sailing or something that's easy breezy, the wind blowing through your hair as you're sailing on the open sea.
I think if it's not specifically referenced in the lyric, at least there's a mood that's prevalent in the song that places it in that type of environment.
Yes. Like that's important to me, I think, to really narrow it down to its core. It's not completely mandatory, but I do think that piece is important. It has to be yachty.
So I guess the opposite of yachty would be earthy, which makes sense because yacht rock, you're floating, you're out on the water, You're on the ocean. Earthy, you're on land, you're in the dirt. So it has to be a polished sound, very highly produced. Slick is certainly part of it. That's a term that can be used to describe the production. And again, there's an element of R&B and jazz. There's a black music influence in there, particularly in the vocals. It doesn't have to be a straight, soul vocal, but certainly soulfully performed. It requires a technician in really every aspect of the music, from the vocals through all the instrumentalists and in the producer chair.
And I do think a lot of these songs, definitely the vocals stand out. And really, I mean, that's kind of the case with a lot of soft rock too, because, the vocals are what's carrying a lot of these songs. Some of these songs would be just so syrupy if it weren't for that soulfulness in the vocals, just a touch of that at least.
I think we need to talk about the term first, because I've spent way too many hours online researching yacht rock. And there are countless references to this web series that came out around 2010. And they do get a ton of credit for the resurgence and the revival and the popularity of this music.
Well,
But
they were the ones that coined the term.
no, they did not. That's
Okay.
one thing I want to get set straight. They did not coin the term. That term had been around long before that. Now
Okay.
I remember reading it. I wish I could remember what magazine it was, but it was a reference to Duran Duran. It was kind of a dig at Duran Duran. The Duran Duran's interesting. We'll talk way more about them here down
Oh,
the
yeah.
road
Yeah.
when we get into 1982 and 83. But their music, part of the reason it's so identified with the 80s is that was the age of aspiration and the yuppies and the upwardly mobile
Yes.
people. And these were a bunch of guys from industrial, gritty Birmingham, England.
You throw them on a yacht in Sri Lanka and, they're looking pretty yuppie. Their videos really brought them into what maybe people would call yacht rock because they're on a yacht,
That's
they're
right.
they're on a
So
sailboat.
I remember years and years ago seeing that term thrown at Duran Duran and in reference to those videos and their visual style. So
Okay.
the term yacht rock had been around long before these guys and before the web series. I think they made a short film and it was a hit at a film festival, and then it went from there, developed into this web series. And the series, it's kind of lampooning the era and the music, but lovingly. I think there's an appreciation for it. I've only just barely been introduced to the web series. I've never watched it. I've heard a little bit.
I haven't actually watched it. It actually came out in 2005. I've only seen little bits and pieces of it because I think it's on Netflix. There's a series on soft rock and they have a whole section on yacht rock and they have those two guys on the show. They say that they coined the phrase and they say that they didn't trademark it or anything because they figured why, it's not like anybody's ever going to care about this. And so now it's become like this phenomena. There's the Yacht Rock Review, which is a band that plays yacht rock songs, covers, but they also have new music that is yacht rock and they're huge.
It's funny too, getting back to the differentiation between yacht rock and soft rock. I saw an interview with a guy from Yacht Rock Review and he says, anybody who is, a working musician trying to make a living playing that kind of music and marketing themselves, they have to play non-yacht rock stuff, just soft, because people expect that. Again, because your average music fan just kind of thinks of yacht rock as just,
it's just lumped into soft
like
rock
70s pop,
yeah.
light 70s pop. But again, we're going to look at a more narrower definition of the term here with the songs that we're choosing. One of the things that I love the most about us doing this podcast, and I think you appreciate this too, is, you and I have a thirst for discovering new sounds and new things. And this is kind of an avenue to that. And I think we've both kind of had our eyes open with one of the bands we're going to talk about today, and that's Ambrosia. Let's start there. So Ambrosia, they'd had a couple of hit songs before 1980. Their first album came out in 75, and they had a song called Holding On to Yesterday, which made the top 40. And then their first big yacht rock hit would have been How Much I Feel, which came out in 1978 on their third album. And then their fourth album comes out in 1980. The album's called 180, which is I think kind of a clever title.
Yeah.
Because what I didn't realize until we were researching this episode, and you'd kind of discovered this with Ambrosia before they're a straight up prog rock band when they first came out. And
their
you
first
actually
two albums.
Yeah. And you really love that first album in particular, the 75 self-titled album.
I love the first album. It's it's actually mixed by Alan Parsons. It's prog, but it's also very pop too. It's a really nice mix, actually, because, it does have the musicianship. It's got the interesting changes and time signatures. There's cool keyboards, which I always want in my prog.
Yeah, I love
There's
the
long
keyboards.
passages, long songs, and it sounds great. And they are really good musicians. And David Pack's voice is amazing, although that will come into play more with his yacht rock hits where, that really stands out more.
But he's the lead singer on all of the top 40 hits, starting with Holding On to Yesterday.
Yeah. The Alan Parsons connection is really interesting because they actually ended up playing on the Alan Parsons Project's first album. The whole band did, along with the band Pilot, who was also on our playlist.
Right. Yep.
But I saw an interview with David Pack, and he tells the story about how Dark Side of the Moon, hadn't been out for that long at that point. And they were like, boy, this album sounds great. It's so weird, first of all, to think about Dark Side of the Moon not being this album that every person in the world knows and is so, incredibly famous. But anyway, they're like, who engineered this? Who produced it? Well, it was Alan Parsons. Well, and Alan Parsons had been working at Abbey Road Studios, worked with the Beatles. And so I guess David Pack said that they just called Abbey Road Studios and he happened to answer the phone.
There's all of these incredible coincidences that really helped this band get to where they were.
That was one of them. He answers and he's like, oh yeah, this is Alan. And he's like, I'm David Pack from Ambrosia. We have this album. We were wondering if you'd be interested in mixing it. So he said, well, I just happen to be coming to LA next week or in the next couple of weeks. So sure, let's meet up. So they did. He listened to it, loved it, and then he took on the project. And then he brought them in on his album.
Right.
And
simultaneous with, I don't know what his specific plans were, why he was coming to LA, but at the same period of time, he's developing this idea of his own project, which would be called Alan Parsons Project. And once he discovers this band and starts digging into their tapes, they're like, God, wow, this is exactly what I've got in mind for what I want to do. These guys are really talented. And then he drafts them in to help him with his own first album, which was the Tales of Mystery and Imagination album. And they were both on the same record company, 20th Century Fox. But before that Alan Parsons connection, they had made some incredible contacts in the music business. Now, they kind of don't fit the norm of yacht rock, which is in its purest form, generally something that's produced by studio musicians. They're a self-contained unit. They're a band. They came out of the LA area, South Bay. And in fact, they identify San Pedro as their home base, which cracks me up because the one band that I knew of that is identified with San Pedro could not be more removed from Ambrosia. That's the Minutemen. The punk band, the Minutemen. They're very San Pedro band. But that's South Bay, LA area, Long Beach area. But, they'd come together around the turn of the 70s and influenced primarily by Beatles, Beach Boys, Crosby, Stills, and Nash. So very melodic harmonies. And then they get their worlds turned around by going to a King Crimson concert in LA. This is probably the first King Crimson tour of the United States around their first album. And they're just blown away by this. And that's the direction they end up going in. Very much a progressive route influenced by bands like Yes and King Crimson, but still, as you mentioned, maintaining that pop feel, that melodicism and hooks. So it's a really interesting, but there's also a R&B soul influence there. And, David Pack is incredible. Top tier vocalist, but around these elaborate, sophisticated prog compositions, they start to put in these melodic, soulful, highly produced, tight songs. And really, I think most people who are aware of the band Ambrosia are completely unaware of that aspect of them, this progressive aspect.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of like one of those trivia questions.
Yeah.
It's like, what band started as a prog band and then turned into one of the biggest soft rock or yacht rock? It's like a funny little footnote.
Really, the only yacht rock type songs are the singles. The rest of the albums, and they do tackle a lot. There's a lot of different stylistic influences in their music. But one of the things that I like about Ambrosia, and I like bands of this ilk, is you've got multiple songwriters, multiple vocalists, multi-instrumentalists.
Yeah.
Just very musical guys across the board. And all are strong singers.
Which is where you get all those great harmonies
right.
in there.
Well, and those harmonies are a critical part of yacht rock, those sophisticated, airtight harmonies.
Mm-hmm.
And then Life Beyond LA, they go to a way more keyboard-heavy, more modern sound.
Yes.
And by the fourth album, 180, they now have two keyboardists. So they on either side of the stage, and you've got all manner.
You're surrounded by keyboards.
Yeah, you've got piano, organ, and multiple different synth textures added to the mix. And on 180, I just love the synth sounds of this particular. That's part of the reason I love this era of popular music is the synthesizer sounds of this era are so warm and fat, and that would change within a couple of years, when the Yamaha DX7 comes around, and it just the sounds were just not nearly as pleasing.
Yeah, it becomes much more tinny.
Right. Turn to the 80s, and I'm not sure exactly. I know Yamaha had a big synth that came out around this time that had these fat sounds on. I think that's what John Paul Jones was using on Led Zeppelin's last record. And I think maybe Donald Fagen on the late Steely Dan's in his first solo album, The Nightfly. It's that sound that I love on The Nightfly, or on a song we'll talk about in 1981, Stevie Winwood's While You See a Chance. The synth sounds on that it's just warm like a blanket,
Yeah.
analog sound. But 180, the first couple of tracks on that album, you have these keyboard solos, and the synth, it's hard to tell if it's a synthesizer or a treated guitar running through effects. The way that they're bending the sound of it and altering. I mean, it's a great sound. So the band is, you mentioned David Pack, the lead vocalist and the guitarist. There was only ever one guitarist. It was him. The bassist, Joe Puerto, was also one of the main songwriters and vocalists. The first keyboardist, Christopher North, and then a guy named David Cutler Lewis came in later. And then the drummer, Burley Drummond. They're all very talented musicians. And again, unlike a lot of yacht rock, you don't have these heavy hitter session musicians, because these guys are pretty much creating all the sounds on their records with some pretty savvy studio assistants as well. But before, I kind of got off track here, before they made the connection with Alan Parsons, a buddy of theirs, who I think was working at Hollywood Bowl, somehow got them the opportunity. So they were putting on a big concert at the Hollywood Bowl. They wanted a band to come in and test a brand new sound system that they'd installed. And they got up the opportunity to go in there, an empty venue, world famous venue, a Hollywood Bowl, and get up on the stage, set up all their gear, and just play and test out the rigs, test out the sound system. Well, a very famous classical engineer happened to be working the house too, by the name of Gordon Perry, and loved their sound. And so now they have this guy as an ally. He gets them a gig with the LA Philharmonic doing a concert in 1971. So they come to the attention of Zubin Mehta, who's the director of the LA Phil at that. So they've got these classical guys in their corner, and they're coming from a prog background, a lot of classical influence in the rock music they're playing. So that's a cool thing. So they're building this kind of strange network of connections to the music, very unorthodox for a.
And this is long before they recorded an album.
Years before they got a record deal, this is happening. I mean, so this is like turn of the 70s, 70, 71. They didn't put out their first record till 75. It took them a long time before they actually got signed. But once they got out there and got noticed, then they had record labels showing a lot of interest. They initially signed with 20th Century Fox, eventually migrated to Warner Brothers for their third album. And then 180 comes out. So they've already had a couple of hits. How Much I Feel was a big hit in 78. Won the number one, but I think it got to number 3. 180 comes out, and then the song we're pulling from that, Biggest Part of Me. And this song was all over the radio in 1980. And a lot of what made yacht rock, soft rock, what have you, a lot of these type of songs appealing was the crossover potential on radio, where you could have them play on multiple formats on music radio stations. So Ambrosia, being a band with prog roots, could still get played on FM rock stations, even though the singles they're releasing are not rockin'. I mean, these are smooth, soulful pop songs. They're not rock really at all. But they'd already established a foothold on FM AOR formats. So it's tailor-made for the soft rock radio format, which is booming at this time. And of course, they're getting played on top 40 radio as well. And because of the soul influence, the R&B influence, there's that crossover to R&B and black radio stations as well. They definitely got played on black radio, and they charted R&B with multiple songs. So that's what made this music very appealing, and why it got pushed out there by record labels, because there's that marketing potential of getting it on a wide variety of radio formats. But that's all here and there. It's a great song. That's why we're picking it. I mean, David Pack is probably very underappreciated. I mean, this guy should probably be better known as a singer. I mean, he is absolutely at that top table. What he's doing vocally is not easy. And I invite anybody who's a fan of them or this style of music, go on YouTube, look up their live performance on the Merv Griffin show from 1980. They do Biggest Part of Me. I mean, he nails that vocal. It is note perfect. And the way that he slides in and out of falsetto in a higher, I mean, he sings in a higher register.
Yeah.
That is not easy. That is highly technical. Very few singers can do that, and he does it with ease.
He actually did do kind of guest spots on other people's albums. I think he's well respected within the music community. He's friends with Michael McDonald. And it's interesting because a lot of the vocals in this sound like Michael McDonald, especially the backup vocals. You would swear, because Michael McDonald was everywhere at this time,
and you'd
swear that he was there too.
And they were buddies, but Michael McDonald did not sing backup on their music. I mean, you'd swear he's in there.
You'd swear he's in there on the hits, especially. And it's his style that is just kind of emulated. It really does sound like him.
In case we neglected to mention it when we first started talking about yacht rock, I mean, the two totemic figures in yacht rock music, the pillars of yacht rock vocals, Michael McDonald and Kenny Loggins, and which of course makes What a Fool Believes already on our playlist. You referenced, we've already got yacht rock on there. That to many people is the ultimate yacht rock song because it's got the involvement of both Michael McDonald and Kenny Loggins because they were co-writers on that track.
And This Is It is also on our playlist.
Yep, that's right up there too. Absolutely.
But I think that Michael McDonald is a good template to go by, because if it's not him singing on a song, which he is on so many, singing backup if not singing lead, it is that sound which brings in the soulful vocals. And David Pack definitely has that. And so does Joe Puerte. Is that his name? The backup or the other singer?
The frizzy-haired bass player. Yeah.
Right. Because so much of it is in the backup vocals that you hear that. And actually, one of the things about Biggest Part of Me and all three of their big hits, How Much I Feel, Biggest Part of Me, and You're the Only Woman, is it's kind of like a call and response. So it's like, da da ba ba da ba da ba ba da da ba, you've got the backup vocals kind of doing this call and response with the lead vocals.
But the soul in that chord, I mean, he's hitting "Make a Wish, Baby." So he's a normal voice, and I know he'll make it come true. Make a list, baby. And then he's hitting the same notes later, but in a falsetto, and he's just sliding in and out, and it's just seamless. Just seamless, which is, in the studio, obviously you could do a million takes and finally nail that down. But to see them do that live, and I keep thinking about this, again, I don't want to be the old man yelling at the cloud all the time, but, we're of that age now where we can get away with it. I still watch Saturday Night Live religiously every week. So you see live performances on that. And it is so rare to see a performer come out and sing without the digital tools helping them stay in key. I mean, that is just so prevalent now in modern performance. But it always stands out to me when a band or an artist comes on SNL and performs, and that it's just a straight vocal, like when Foo Fighters were on the other. They're not using auto-tune, He's a rock singer,
But that's a different style of music. Right. And actually, one of the things I think that is really something that stands out on our playlist particularly is the vocals. So many of these songs that we're choosing have really amazing vocal performances. Yeah. When I go back and look at our playlist, I'm like, God, these people can sing.
Yeah, exactly. And anybody doing this type of music now with that kind of vocal, it's going to be mighty rare to see them come out there without that safety net of auto-tune backing them up. But you see these guys with those vintage performances, and it is just them, baby. It's all talent. So 2 big hit singles on that record, Biggest Part of Me, and then You're the Only Woman. And God, just a butter vocal on that too. And just lush harmonies and production. That is pure yacht rock. But again, the rest of the record, there's really only one true prog track.
Kamikaze is the only real prog song on that album. Yeah,
I love the opening. So the opening track, Ready. If you approach that from a power pop angle, that's a great song. But a lot of the rest of that record, it's really more of a mainstream rock sound than it is soft rock or prog or yacht rock for that matter. But they're good. I mean, it's definitely a band I'm going to be listening to more down the road and investigating. And the one I haven't tried yet. Now, so 2 years later, they released Rhode Island, Clever, ROAD.
I haven't listened to that. Yeah.
And they're kind of trying to go more back to a harder rock and sound. But I haven't listened to any of that. That album did not fare well. And that was kind of the end for Ambrosia. They broke up after that. They reformed later on. David Pack is no longer performing with these guys, but they still tour and they still play shows all over the place. And one thing they have earned over the years is a reputation as an outstanding live band. And you could see, obviously, from those televised performances.
David Pack is still really involved in music. He's just doing his own things. And I think he might have been part of the Yacht Rock Review early on, too. Or actually, maybe not. I think it's the next artist we're going to
Yes,
talk about.
and in fact, Ambrosia and our next artist have toured on a Yacht Rock package tour together. And this artist, I still have one of his 45s from his hit record from 1980, his second single release from that year. But his first single release is the Superior song, and the one that has lived on and is considered a Yacht Rock classic, and that is Steal Away by Robbie Dupree.
Yeah. Robbie Dupree is one of those guys that he'd been kicking around for a long time in the music business. He grew up in Brooklyn. He was very much into like doo-wop and R&B, and he's got that influence in his sound. And then he moved to Woodstock in the mid-70s, and I guess he hooked up with Nile Rodgers of Future Chic fame, and he was in a band with him for a while. And they were offered a record deal, and he was like, I don't think that this is going to be good for my songwriting career. So he left the deal on the table. And I think he had a few things like that. Maybe he knew at some point that he was going to have a big hit. And so he wanted to protect that in his songwriting and not just sign it away in a contract or something. So he was really holding out. And then he moved to LA, and he had already written the song Steal Away at this point. He, again, was offered a deal, but part of the deal was that he had to give away the rights to Steal Away. And he was like, no, not going to do that. So he left the deal on the table. And he basically, actually, I think what he did was he told them that if it's not a hit in a certain amount of time, then they could have it or something. But then he released it himself, and within like a couple months, it became a hit. I don't know how far on the charts it went. It was pretty high. It was top 10.
Definitely top 10. Yeah. It never hit number one, but it was definitely top 10.
Yeah. Once again, this is one of those songs that you could swear Michael McDonald is singing background. And in fact, one of the things that when this song came out and was a hit that was kind of criticized was that people said it was basically like a clone of What a Fool Believes. It came out, around the same time as What a Fool Believes. So it was somewhat sort of diminished in that sense by the critics because they thought that he was just basically copying Michael McDonald.
I'd never really noticed the similarities, but I could definitely hear it for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear it. And like I said, it really does sound like Michael McDonald is singing on this song, which tells you just how far the Michael McDonald ripple effect has in this era. One of the things I will say is I watched some live performances of him. I couldn't really find live performances. They were all lip synced, but he's a very boring, lifeless performer. He doesn't play an instrument. He just sings. He's a good example of one of those singers that you're like, you really need to just put a guitar in your hand or a tambourine or something, even if you don't play it.
The impression I got from Robbie Dupree is he just doesn't have a lot of time. It's just all about recording the song. It doesn't seem like he gets a charge out of performing live. Doesn't want to deal with all the other hassles that go along with being. Did you watch the interview with Dick Clark in American Bandstand?
Yes.
He's all fidgety and just like, can we just get this over with?
He's so uncomfortable and he just has nothing to say. And he's like, he does not want to be on camera.
Come on,
really.
we just want to do our song and get the hell out of here. Can we just get this over with? That's the impression I get. One thing I also noticed is his guitarist. I'm like, that guy looks familiar. I mean, his guitarist looks like a straight up rock star, blonde, long hair, good looking guy.
Mm-hmm.
It's Brian Ray, who played in McCartney's band for years. So that's Brian Ray and his band. And one of the things I noticed about Steal Away too, the intro is awesome. It's got that choral sitar in the intro, which is unusual for the era.
It sounds like a sitar, but it's a guitar.
Yeah, it's choral. It's a choral sitar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So like Do It Again, Steely Dan. It's the same instrument.
Yes, yeah.
It's an electric guitar, but it's constructed and tuned to sound like a sitar.
Okay, yeah.
But that's a sound that really is out of fashion at this point in time.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know, it's so unusual. And I think it's really cool. Like I think it's one of the things that kind of makes the song stand out.
Right,
but
yeah.
I've always thought it was really strange.
It's a very simple pattern too, but it's cool. It's like da 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 Da-da.
Yeah.
Da-da. It works, though. It
I
works.
know.
Great hook.
It does. Yeah. I really like it too. It is actually a super hooky song. It's very sticky.
Yeah.
It's a song that just runs around in my head. I cannot get it out.
Very simple lyric, basically about trying to get it on with a lady.
Yeah. Which is what a lot of lyrics were like from this era. You know, that's a very common theme in this era.
Yes. That's also what makes this era fascinating, is it's pre-AIDS. So there's a lot of decadence. I mean, this is kind of peak music business decadence in this era, the turn of the 80s. Yeah. Everybody's snorting coke.
Everybody's snorting coke on their yacht.
Yeah.
While listening to yacht rock. So Steal Away, big hit. It was nominated for a Grammy, but of course that was the year that Christopher Cross swept the Grammys and no one else had any chance at all.
Another yacht rock totem, Christopher Cross, because and there's some argument. I mean, I really don't want to go down this road about planting a flag for yacht rock. And this is yacht rock. This isn't. That isn't. That is. That. There's so many arguments about that. But most people consider Christopher Cross to be yacht rock. I think we would be in that camp.
I mean, come on, sailing?
You know, sailing.
How could that not be yacht rock?
True, but they're really, I mean, where's the R&B? Where's the jazz in there really isn't in that.
Yeah, but I think you have to give it a pass because it's sailing.
That's right.
Have you listened to Robbie Dupree's album?
No.
Okay.
But I had, like I said, I had Hot Rod Hearts, which was the second on 45. I enjoyed Steal Away when that was a hit. I don't know that I ever would have considered having his album. I think, I probably could have come close to having the 180 Ambrosia album in my hands back in that day. And so I certainly was aware of Ambrosia, the album 180, hearing about it. But no, I've never listened to the Robbie Dupree album.
It's pretty good, actually. And Hot Rod Hearts, which was also a hit for him, not as big as Steal Away. That was a total afterthought.
Yeah.
Not as good. It was a song that the record label wanted him to add another song that they thought might be a hit. And he was against it, actually. And he was like, didn't think it was anything.
Yeah,
and then they ended up recording it in like 24 hours. Yeah. He didn't write it. They recorded it in 24 hours. And it did become a modest hit for him. But nothing like Steal Away.
Out on the boulevard tonight. It's kind of corny melody to it.
Yeah. Well, it obviously didn't have the longevity like Steal Away did.
Nope.
But, I also have to wonder if some of these songs, like Steal Away, which is a one-hit wonder for him. Well, he's a two-hit wonder, I guess. Yeah, which we found a lot of these one-hit wonders are actually two-hit wonders, right?
Like Starbuck. Don't call Starbuck a one-hit wonder.
No, Moonlight So Right is not their only hit. It was their biggest hit.
Moonlight So Right. You were probably close to putting that forward for, what was that, 78 when that came out?
Yeah, I love that song. But what I think is interesting is that some of these one-hit or two-hit wonders, like Robbie Dupree, he had a big resurgence because of yacht rock becoming big. And then he was actually one of the first artists to join the Yacht Rock Review and tour with them. And then, they started bringing in other artists like Ambrosia, Starbuck, all these like kind of bands that really weren't bands anymore. They weren't really people that were that active in the music industry anymore, music business. But
that's why, because I've never watched the web series or anything like that. But obviously these guys had a lot to do with the resurgence of this music and the reason that these guys are able to go out and make money again and tour. And but it's fascinating to me to see the reactions of all these artists, because the series, there's definitely an ironic bent to it. It is a lampoon in a lot of ways, but it's loving. Yeah. I think it's coming from a place of love, not scorn. But, some people have accepted, like Michael McDonald has this, he just seems like the most cool, agreeable person you could ever hope to come across.
Maybe that's why everybody loved working with him. Why he's all over the place, because people enjoy working with him.
Just a good dude, just a good dude. I think Kenny Loggins is a cool, laid back guy. But then, I was thinking about this. The Boz Scaggs record, Silk Degrees, really is a landmark yacht rock album. Came out in 76. I'll bet Boz Scaggs isn't really a big fan of the term yacht rock or these guys.
He's a more serious. Some people definitely have embraced it. I think Michael McDonald and Kenny Loggins it's good that they have, because they are really the main characters in this whole yacht rock ordeal. And so,
ordeal.
But yeah, I think there's others that probably just see it as a jab at them, making fun of them rather than just being more of a loving tribute.
Another thing that I find interesting about this phenomenon, now you and I have always loved this music. It's always been close to us, but I think in general, people of our generation are more drawn to the music that came out during our high school years and then post-high school.
More 80s.
More the later 80s and early 90s. So like the
Mid to late
the
80s
grunge era
and
stuff.
early
I mean,
90s.
for just the people we know, our generation, they're really more into like the pop metal stuff that came out later, the grunge stuff, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains, that kind of stuff. The yacht rock revival has really been embraced more by younger generations than us.
Yeah.
Rather than the boomers, who it was their music after all. The music is basically it's soundtracking the emergence of the yuppie is what it's doing. It's music for upwardly mobile young white people who are still kind of just starting their career paths. Maybe their earliest serious relationships are breaking up at this point, or their marriages. That's kind of what this music is soundtrack. So it's really a boomer thing. But we're young kids getting into music at this point in time, and this is the prevalent style of music at the time. So we associate that. So I think the revival of yacht rock has been embraced by more millennial and Gen Z folks than Gen X and boomers.
Yeah, like the Yacht Rock Review, the majority of the audience is young.
Right.
I don't know if it's because their parents, it wouldn't even be their parents. It'd be like their grandparents, that their grandparents were into this music. But I also think that there's a longevity with these songs, that they've always been part of our music heritage. Like most of these songs, they were radio hits. You're not delving into like album tracks here. These are all big hits and were big radio songs.
These were songs that were designed to be hit songs. They weren't designed to be part of album-length artistic statements. These were designed to sell singles.
Yeah, exactly. And really, I mean, this era is perfect for something like yacht rock because it's so easy to make a playlist on Spotify, where you can just put all these songs together. And that's why the Yacht Rock Review, too. They're basically a playlist, a yacht rock playlist. Which, by the way, I have to say, I saw some insane additions to Yacht Rock playlists, like the Clash Combat Rock was on one. Foreigner Urgent. I'm like, how is this Yacht Rock? This is not Yacht Rock.
Because
You're tainting the name.
Because it's like anything that has a sax on it.
Okay, yeah, I guess that's it. But it's like, come on, we have to have some sense of tradition here of what this means.
And really, it's the electric piano more than the sax. That's like the keynote instrument in a yacht rock song.
Which is why Michael McDonald is so imperative in this equation.
That is right up his alley, isn't it? He is always parked at that.
What would my definition of yacht rock is a song that Michael McDonald would either sing or sing on, like someone's song he would sing on. That's my definition.
He doesn't have to be on it, but he has to be able to potentially be on it. How's that?
Yes, exactly. If you could fit in this song, it is yacht rock.
If you could put Michael McDonald's voice in the background somewhere or the foreground and it would fit perfectly, it's yacht rock.
Yes. Yep. I think so. Do you have a list of your 5 favorite yacht rock songs?
No, but I was going to, I can go back and look at the songs that I culled in anticipation of potentially choosing them for the playlist. And I could certainly single out songs that would be yacht rock.
It's not just yacht rock, but your favorite yacht rock song.
Oh, boy. Well, I mean, Ride Like the Wind, certainly Christopher Cross, which Michael McDonald does sing on.
Yes.
Now, the Eagles get put on a lot of yacht rock playlists. I would say the majority of their music is not, but one song in particular I think fits very well, and that's I Can't Tell You Why, the beautifully sung ballad by Timothy B. Schmidt. I think that definitely...
That was the song I was debating on between that and Steal Away. Yeah.
Hall & Oates, again, a lot of their music wouldn't necessarily be yacht rock. I think they're kind of pioneers of the genre, though. I think you go back to stuff like Sarah's Smile and She's Gone. There's a lot of yachtiness to those. They had Kiss on my list in 1980, which I don't necessarily think of as a yacht rock song.
I've seen I Can't Go For That on there a lot, too, on the yacht rock list.
I could definitely see that. I think one that definitely fits on a yacht rock playlist from 1980, Cool Change by Little River Band. and that's got a sailing theme to it, so it's almost perfect. We've talked about this song. This song gives you the shivers because of its lyrical content, but Benny Mardones, the one-hit wonder with Into the Night, that came out in 1980.
Oh, God, yeah, with the 16-year-old.
Right.
Yeah.
What else from 1980? Roxy Music isn't really yacht rock, but they kind of changed from the band they were in those first two records in 72, 73 to a kind of a different animal at this point in time.
Brian Ferry's Roxy Music at that point, is definitely the vocals.
Yeah.
The vocals have a yacht rock feel, but I still have a hard time putting them in that category because it just doesn't feel right.
I don't really call them yacht rock, but Over You, that's certainly smooth. It's a very smooth pop song. And this is all just from 1980.
I have favorites, and mine are not just from 1980. Ride Like the Wind was on my list.
Do That to Me
Moonlight,
One More
So Right.
Do That to Me One More Time, Captain and Tennille, 1979.
Yeah, that would fit. And I mean, come on, it's the Captain. And everybody, if you look at the Yacht Rock Review concerts, 70% of the people are wearing captain's hats in the audience.
Yeah, Do That to Me One More. Very soulful vocal by sexy, soulful vocal by Tony Tennille. You've got the keyboard sounds that put it in that milieu. I think that's a really good fit right there. Earth, Wind, and Fire, After the Love Is Gone. That's a song that was co-composed by some yacht rock titan session musicians.
Yeah, that's actually written by, the band is Airplay, but it's David Foster and Jay Graydon. David Foster is everywhere. He basically rebuilt Chicago's career. Yep. He was like all over. Jay Graydon's actually the guitarist on Peg, who Steely Dan chose his guitar solo on that. But that album came out in 1980, and it has another hit from it too. The whole album is very yacht rock, and their version of After the Love Is Gone, I mean, that song sounds like it was made for Earth, Wind, and Fire. Theirs brings it really to the level it should be, but Nothing You Can Do About It was a hit for them off that album too.
You've listened to that Airplay album quite a bit. You're a fan of that, right?
Yeah, it's good. It's really good. I think that a lot of people don't know about this album, and it really should be at the forefront of all the yacht rock lists.
So before the web series, before the term yacht rock was applied to this style, I mean, I think a lot of people call it West Coast AOR, and it was very popular in Japan, very popular in Scandinavia, and a lot of these more obscure records in this genre, which were never big hits, were re-released on CD only as Japan imports, and there's a very big collector market for this kind of music.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. This would definitely be one of those.
In fact, the Ambrosia, I mentioned to you the other day, I'm adding them to my hit list. If you find Ambrosia on CD, it's a collectible. I mean, they just aren't out there.
The early stuff, especially, yeah. The
I don't think they were released in the U.S. on CD until One Way put them out in the late 90s. And then again, like a lot of One Way or Wounded Bird or labels like that, they're only available for a short period of time and then they're out of print. So again, something, if you see an Ambrosia CD, and I'm adding them and Little River Band to my hit list because pretty much all the Little River Band CDs are collectible too. Those have all been out of print forever. And it's great music, it just is.
Yeah. Well, okay, I've got some songs, and these aren't all from 1980, but Ride Like the Wind is.
The single for Ride Like the Wind may have actually come out in 79. I'm wrong. The single came out in February of 80, so that's a 1980 single. B-side, Minstrel Gigolo.
Doesn't sound very yacht rock.
No.
Well, maybe, actually, if the minstrel is playing keyboards or a saxophone.
That's right.
Okay, Love Will Find a Way.
Oh, yeah. Pablo Cruz. Right.
Can you get any more yacht rock? I mean, their name is Pablo Cruz.
Yep.
Southern Cross, Crosby, Stills, and Nash.
Yeah, there's some debate about that. So, I mean, again, Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and Stephen Stills, I think in particular, kind of a lot of his early stuff is heading in that direction.
But, the album cover no, not that album. They do have an album, the CSN album. Right. They're on a cell
The one
phone,
with Just a Song Before I Go on it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I don't know. This one feels yacht rock to me, and it's one of my favorite songs.
You're not alone.
Okay, Thunder Island by Jay Ferguson.
Yes.
He was the lead singer of Spirit, one of your favorite bands. But he got pretty darn yacht rock, and I love the cover of this album, too, where he's like on a beach, and his wind is blowing his hair, and he's all like in this sexy pose. Speaking of, I have to say, one of the things I love about the Ambrosia album and what could happen at this era, in this era, was men embracing
Oh
on
God,
the album cover.
you're talking about the 180 cover? That
Yes, the
is,
180 cover. You got the three of them, and
yeah.
they're kind of stacked up, the three, and they're sort of embracing each other in a way that you could only do in 1980 or 1970. Between 1975 and 1980, really, is the only time you could do that kind of an album cover. And another song I have that also would fit.
Got to be showing some chest hair while you're doing it too.
Another one that would also fit in that is "Dance with Me."
Oh yeah.
By Orleans.
Or Still the One.
Also one of my favorite yacht rock songs. And that album cover, they had a couple where they were all completely shirtless and embracing each other. And there's like 5 or 6
and we can't see below the waist on that cover. One would
I have no idea what's happening.
One would hope that they're not completely disrobed, but who knows? I'm looking at my 79 list again, a song that nearly made it for me that didn't was Just When I Needed You Most by Randy Van Warmer. Again, that's just straight up soft rock. It's a beautiful vocal performance, but it's not R&B. It's not jazzy. It doesn't have that element to it.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, I want to talk about Randy Van Warmer later because he's got a really cool album that came out in 1982.
Oh.
And that song is kind of a just non sequitur for the rest of his catalog, the one that was a hit
Really?
for him.
Okay. You're still going through your list here?
Oh, the Escape song.
Yeah, again, I don't know. Is that Rupert Holmes? I just don't know if he is as strong enough vocalist to really hit the mark.
Yeah, I guess in that regard, he doesn't really fit the mold.
He's kind of a quirky. He's kind of a quirky.
He's drinking pina coladas. Where are you going to drink a pina colada? On a yacht.
I think that's where a lot of the arguments start about yacht rock. I mean, people want to look at themes of the lyrics more than the music.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you focusing on, the music or the lyric? I just don't think of Rupert Holmes vocally in that same category. I mean, he is certainly not in the class.
You're right. He's not
of some of these strong, soulful vocalists, and he's kind of a quirky songwriter.
Yeah, but I still have to put it on the list just because it does evoke the setting.
I think Him might be more yacht rock than the Pina Colada song.
I don't even know that song.
Him, what you gonna do about it? You don't remember that one? Oh God,
no.
He was a 3-hit wonder. He had the Pina Colada song, which I actually called Escape, the Pina Colada song in parentheses. Him, which is a pretty big hit too, and then Answering Machine, which scraped into the top 40.
Okay, well, I guess the only ones that really fit on my list are Ride Like the Wind, Love Will Find a Way, Moonlight So Right, Dance With Me,
and with me.
Thunder Island.
I want to
Those
be
are my
your
5.
partner. So an exercise I undertook before we wrap up Yacht Rock here was trying to determine what would be contenders for the first Yacht Rock song. Now, those who are very passionate about this style of music try to nail down a time period, and most of them say 75 to 83, 84, maybe 85 or 76 even to the mid-80s. So I'm looking at the years before that, trying to find songs that could potentially slot into that format. Now, I look at a band like Chicago as kind of a forerunner of the yacht rock sound. Certainly, as Peter Cetera begins to emerge as more of a creative force in that group, he is right in there as far as yacht rock is concerned vocally. Very good, strong, soulful vocalist, but producing music in a soft rock ballad vein. I look at a song.
Leave me now.
Yeah.
Is that?
I look at Just You and Me from the 60s. Now, that came out the end of 73. Now, that's kind of starting to get into that smooth vein. I think there's just a different sound to the production that comes later in the 70s that really locks things into yacht rock. So the stuff from like 73, 74, even though I love the sound of it, it's got a little more grit in the production that gets smoothed out. And again, that's Steely Dan's influence. They took all that out.
Yes.
But I think of Chicago. Here's a song that I think is almost all there, and it's from 74. And again, a lot of yacht rock, it's white male vocalists singing soulfully, but this is a female. It's Midnight at the Oasis, which was a big hit in 1974. Maria Muldaur, kind of a one-hit wonder. Musically, I think it's pretty much all there. It's got great studio players on it, an incredible guitar solo by Amos Garrett. Certainly the lyrical vibe is right in there. It's just, as a vocalist, she's kind of quirky. She's not traditional, strong, powerful soul
Like if
type
Tony
vocal. Yeah.
Tennille was singing it, it would certainly be
Yes.
yacht rock.
Now you're, yes,
Hmm.
yes. I think that's the missing piece is the vocal. But everything else seems to hit the mark for me. And that's
Hmm.
generally outside the time frame of what is considered yacht rock. And then another one that would be kind of controversial, a song I've loved my whole life by Aretha Franklin, Until You Come Back to Me, which is a Stevie Wonder co-write. His version didn't pop up on a record until many years later, but it's just got that smooth vibe to it. But again, the production, the sound of the production is not the same slick sound that you would get a few years later.
Which is why I think that the era really makes a difference,
Yeah.
because that's what was happening in production at that time. And especially if you're using session musicians, it's kind of like how, you have the Wrecking Crew in like the early 60s and how a lot of those albums sound the same because of that, or you have the different, production styles that were popular at the time. This production style from 75 to 82 or 83 or whatever just screams yacht rock
Right.
because of the
Yeah.
sound.
Yeah.
And
It had to do with the studios, the gear, the
yeah.
producer style. But, the Aretha song, that's the missing element there. But it's got everything else. It's got that smooth groove to it. It's got big time session guys on it, but they're East Coast guys, not the West Coast guys. So they're guys like, Richard T. and Bernard Purdy, Hugh
Mhm.
McCracken on the
But see,
guitar. Yeah.
this goes back to the whole thing too about there's bands that basically are slotted into yacht rock as a band. And then there's artists who have songs
Yes.
that fit into yacht rock, like Crosby, Stills and Nash, or, and it's the same thing with disco. Pretty much everybody under the sun did a disco song, even Kiss did, or, the Stones, but it doesn't mean they're a disco. It just means they had a song.
Even Neil Young, Neil Young, as gritty and earthy as his music. I mean, he dabbled certainly on the Stills Young album with Moonlight on the Bay. That's really going into yacht rock territory.
Yeah, well, that's why I think that pretty much everyone who's had a long enough career and was recording during these years, there's a lot of bands that are going to have a song that will fit into that slot, and doesn't necessarily mean they have anything else that would. And then there's other bands that pretty much their entire career is just yacht rock, like Pablo Cruz,
But that's an essential element of the music. Maybe it wasn't recorded in an LA studio with the Toto guys or the big session cats, but it has to be evocative of that West Coast laid back, mellow vibe. But it does have an element of R&B and jazz to it, but it's got to be smooth and laid back.
Oh yeah. Smooth sailing.
And there was a lot of music coming out that time that certainly fit that bill. And I think the end of the story here is I love the fact that I can now add Ambrosia to the list of groups that I want to investigate more. Never would have seen that coming.
I have discovered so much music doing this podcast. I mean, I felt like I already knew a lot of music, but now I'm like, oh my God, there's so much music out there that I didn't even know existed that is either connected to people that I did know about. I mean, this is that whole roots and branches thing that you were talking about before, where you start to look at producers and session guys and are people playing on other albums, and it really just like opens up a whole world of music out there that I did not even realize existed, and that I've now wanted to go delve deeper into, some of these artists that were what I would think maybe just a one-hit wonder, or, like Ambrosia, and go deeper and find that there's all kinds of really great stuff out there.
Well, if nothing else comes from our exercise doing this podcast, selfishly, we are salvaging these artists from our youth and rediscovering the greatness of them, and hopefully inspiring others to do the same.
Yeah.
So that is our yacht rock genre exercise this week. We've got more to come down the line with Crossover Country and the ska revival, the first ska revival. There would be more than one. This one wouldn't really impact the United States so much. That would come later in the 90s, but some incredible music coming out of the first ska revival, the turn of the 80s in England, and some really cool crossover country singles hitting the charts around this time too, and a lot of them were featured on the soundtrack of the movie Urban Cowboy. So that's some of the stuff to come later on. But until then, you've been listening to Matt and Cheryl's Gen Excellent Playlist. I'm Matt.
I'm Cheryl.
Thanks for joining us, everybody, and take care.